Hello and welcome to Test Master Talks with Kevin Sullivan. I'm your host, JP John Paz. Of course, with me, the star of the show, the former WCW and ECW World Tag Team Champion, one of the greatest minds and bookers ever in the history of the business, the Games Master, the Taskmaster, the Devil himself, Mr. Kevin Sullivan. Kevin, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, JP. How are you, my friend?
Doing good, doing good. Can't complain. With, Tales from the Territories, you were obviously on the Florida episode and you're going to be on some other episodes. I was just curious, like, in general, territories and booking. You get the territory. How do you book it? Like that's something that is fascinating to me because obviously you did it well, but it's not like you had experience coming in, right? Like how do you book the territory?
With no experience,
Yeah.
I believe that you had to sit under a guy that knew what he was doing and take his script and make it your own and change it a little. But here's the strange thing about it. You had talent coming in and out of the territory. So there's always fresh people. I've mentioned this when you were a kid and you went to the gardens and they would announce in intermission after a long absence coming back, Victor Rivera, the people would pop.
Yep.
You know the old saying, they can't be missed unless you go away. And then back in the days with no internet, the only way wrestling fans, this is slightly before tape trading, was the magazines. And the magazines always made the guys look bigger than they were, right? So all of a sudden, a guy's coming in, they've never seen him. It's almost like a free pass. Do you know what I'm saying? That they're going to come down, and if the guy can perform, they'll be back. Today's day and age, where people stay forever, it's a lot harder. I mean, before we went on the air, we were talking about guys switches back and forth from babyface to heel. How many times did Big Show do that?
100. Yeah, he did it a lot.
It loses credibility because you're cheering for a guy and you're saying, 2 weeks ago I was booing this guy. Is this going to happen? And when it happens time and time again, not belittle Big Show because he drew a huge amount of money from the very beginning. You follow into what I keep on talking about, patents, right? And people lose confidence in a guy. You know, it's like you can make a guy turn either or babyface or heel. But when territory days, if he turned, you could have him a lose-a-leave town match. It would mean something. He would go away. So when he came back 3 years later, he had a fresh start. He could come in as a babyface or a heel, whatever he had done well with him going away. You know what I mean? But it's very hard, I believe. It's very hard storyline to keep on flipping guys back and forth. That's just my take on it.
When you get the book and you start booking a territory, what's the first thing you do? Like, what did you think? Like, okay, this is what I need to start fresh with, or maybe, you get some new talent or whatever. What do you do? Like, how do you start it?
You look at the talent there. You look at the talent that's drawn money. Look at the guys that you know are going to help out. And then you bring in, which everybody does, their own crew who they're comfortable with that has drawn money. So, and then you look at a guy that has been around a long time in a territory, and maybe he was a main eventer a year and a half ago, but now he's just in the middle of the cards. And when that usually happens, guys kind of lose confidence. They know they're not going to go back up to the main event, and they're just kind of doing time. So is that slot going to help you? Or is it better to bring someone in with a new face and see if you can get them over? So that's kind of the basis of it. But you don't get rid of guys just to get rid of guys. And if you have guys there that have drawn money, but they feel like the new regime isn't going to be quite as favorable to them, you got to get the most out of them before they're going to give you a notice, because you can pretty well tell who's going to stay, who's going to go.
So when you take over the book in like Florida, what do you do? What was the first thing? Like, who did you look at? Who did you want to keep? Did you think, oh, I need help? Somebody, I need an assistant. Like, what did
Oh,
you do?
yeah, you need an assistant to double check yourself. I was lucky I had JJ and Oliver Humperdinck. And you also know that some guys that have been there for a while are almost looking for a change themselves to leave. So you kind of get the most you can out of those guys before they leave, and bring in your own crew and let them get the heat that the guys had generated, or the goodwill as a babyface, and pass it on to the guys you're bringing in to draw money.
So how do you book a card? I was talking to a guy last night, very veteran of the business, 20 plus years. He was saying that was like one of the things that he didn't know at first. He didn't understand it. Like, what are the first match? Oh, how come he was saying like bad wrestling, like what they were doing in the third match, they kind of did in the first match. He was kind of saying when you're the booker, you got to book the whole card. You got to actually think it through every night, not just throw stuff out there. Like, how do you book a card?
To me, the most important match is the first match. It sets the tone for the night. So you want it, for me, I want my two best technical or high flyers that are going to give you action right away. Second match, you want to kind of give it a little bit of a break and bring in some guys that can really move, but aren't going to do the same spots the first match did. And then you want to, like I said, you want to, the third match, suppose you have 6 matches. The third match should almost be relegated to the babyface that you just brought in, or the heel you just brought in, to kind of put the spotlight on them. And then the 4th, 5th, and 6th, of course, the main event is what you shot the angle with on TV and what should draw the house. And then I've always liked tag matches in the next to last or second or next to last on the card, because to me, tag team wrestling is sort of a lost art today for a lot of companies. I know that WWE went through it for a long while, right?
Yep.
And it's an important part of the historical fact of wrestling. And it's easy when you have teams. I know I'm going back in the past, but the Rock and Roll and the Midnight Express, you couldn't go wrong there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So what about the main event? What do you do for the main?
The main event has to be your single title of the territory, and you have to have a heel that's over and a baby face that the people believe in.
So when you
You're building 2 different buildings at the same time. You're building a heel building and you're building a babyface building.
So when you were building, you make sure you have that building block, but you need the guy who's on top to draw the money, right?
Right.
So with you and let's say Florida, when you first get in there, like who are your guys? I know you said Humperdinck and JJ, but who's the talent you love? Like, do you like Bob Roop or who are your guys?
Yeah, I had Bob Roop. I had Mark Lewin. I had Angela Mosca. On my side, big, crazy heels. But on the other side, I had technical heels too. because I didn't want it all to look the same. I wanted to give you a variety. And some of us like vanilla ice cream, some of us like Rocky Road. You want to give them a little bit of everything.
Did you always want to be a booker or no?
Yeah, I think so. Especially when I was younger and I got to see what Eddie was doing. Because, and then Vince Sr., it was amazing that they could book that far out and know where they were going and usually stick to it pretty close.
And you would have that same philosophy? You'd like to book far out, far in advance?
Yeah, because I don't think you can write a book if you don't know what the ending is.
I do think that's a lot of the problem in today. They have no idea where the story's going, and it just kind of goes and then it has no ending.
And to give them their just due, they're writing a lot of TV. And they're under the gun because they have to have ratings every week. So, therefore, maybe they don't have the chance. But to me, even if you got down to 3 months, you should be able to do 3 months. Should have an idea how you're going to interlace the thing for at least 3 months. Okay, maybe you can't do it for a year because, especially in today's day and age where all these injuries are popping up.
Big time.
Yeah.
So many more so I've noticed now than ever. I don't know if it's the way they're training, what they're taking, but it seems like now more than ever, there's so many injuries going on.
Yeah, I think that they do a lot more high risk stuff, but isn't that it's just high risk? They're doing it many times a match. You can get away with it maybe twice during the match, but 6 or 7 times, it's not going to work. And when they do these real high risk moves, you may not physically get injured that first time you do it, or second time you do it, or the third time, but you're putting your body at risk, and the injuries are going to occur because of constant wear and tear.
So, how did you become a booker, like in Florida? Like, how did that happen? Dusty left the territory, and they said, "Hey, you want it, Kevin?"
The first time Dusty was leaving, I believe he was champion, and they said, I think it was that Dusty recommended me, and that's how it happened.
So, when you're taking the book and you're taking that over, do you get the guys together? Like, how does that work? Do you say, "Hey, I'm in charge now, guys. Let's have a meeting," or like, how does that work? Does Eddie just say, "Hey, Kevin's in charge," or how does that work?
They have a meeting and introduce you, and you're in charge, and they always, it's like being a baseball manager. The day you take the job, you're one day closer to going out the door. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it's not going to be a very long run. Usually, you don't see bookers hang around for a very long time back then in any one territory, but they did move from territory to territory.
What is that famous line about baseball managers? They hire you to fire you.
Yeah,
I think it is.
yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
So they don't expect you to be a booker forever. I mean, they say 2 years or whatever, and then you're done.
Uh, Dusty had a great run, but he was also booking Dusty Rhodes. You know what I mean? And Dusty knew how to book Dusty. And I've said this before. People have always said, well, he never did a job. No, Dusty did jobs when he knew it was time for him to do a job. It would revive the territory.
Do you think being a booker and a wrestler at the same time is like a bad thing to do, or you think that's okay?
I think in today's day and age, it's not the greatest thing to do because it's very hard to separate your ability as a wrestler when you got a pencil in your hand.
Back then, do you think it was okay, or do you think maybe somebody else should be the booker and then wrestlers maybe shouldn't be bookers?
Well, it was okay then because it was a way to keep them for the promotion, to keep the major star from leaving. It was also employed by the owners, you know what I mean? Oh, he may be going, you think he could book? Yeah, I think he could book for a while. And okay, let's make him the booker because he'll get a big jump in his pay, and we'll keep him around longer.
When you're like the wrestler and the booker, do you get heat from the guys? Like, oh, this guy's he's a wrestler, and like, do you get heat from the guys or no?
Yeah, you can if you don't, if you change your attitude. If they can come to you and you can explain what's happening and tell them honestly what's happening, they got no bitch because you're still one of them. It's when you become a booker and you blow them off and bullshit them.
Do you think anybody was like, oh, now Kevin's booking himself? Like, oh, like
I'm sure. I'm sure. It's just the way of the business.
they don't say it to you though?
No, some would. Some would, I'm sure, did, but most of them wouldn't because they were afraid of retribution. And it's very hard when a guy is booking and he's working. Very difficult.
Seems like not like a conflict of interest, but almost similar. Could it be a conflict of interest?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, uh, have you ever heard the story about the Rock and Roll Express and Midnight Express, where they thought their push was stopped when they went to a B town and outdrew Dusty?
Yep.
Well, did that happen? I'm not sure, but I could see how it could.
For sure. I interviewed Ricky and Robert a while ago, but I interviewed them about it, and they said Dusty brought them into a meeting, just them two, and was like, "You guys can't outdraw me." He's like, "It's me and Flair. We're the A town." So I don't know if you could say, "Oh, they're making that up or not," but it seems like they were being very truthful, saying Dusty was mad at them for outdrawing them in him and Flair, basically B town beating the A town.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
Don't cross the boss there. Don't cross the booker.
Yeah, I could see that happening because, you know, you're going to realize back then there was no contracts and bookers had the power to make or break you a week, a month, a year.
So when you get into Florida, do you have like you have your guys, but like in a territory in general, is there like local guys you should be using? Do you want to bring in? Is there a number of like, hey, I got to use this percentage of local guys, this fresh talent, these guys I want to bring in? Like, how do you kind of split that up? Is there a split of heels and baby faces? How does that all work?
There wasn't much local talent. The only local talent that territory used were guys on open matches or enhancement guys on TV because they were local. You wanted to bring guys in that was their full-time gig. They weren't there forever. And that's what the promotion wanted too. They didn't want guys moving into a territory because God forbid they meet somebody in a television company, right?
Yep.
So it was very, very, on the promoter's end, protected to make sure that nobody was buying a house or taking up roots in the neighborhood.
So not a lot of local guys are being used. Is it expensive to keep bringing guys in? Do you keep that in mind as the booker, or that's not your thing? You're just booking the card. You're worried about drawing houses.
Well, you're not having the giant dress rooms they have today. You got to be aware of what's going out the door money wise. But you bringing guys in for different slots, money slots. So you're keeping an eye on the budget too.
With that, how do you like what's the philosophy? What do you tell everybody backstage? Like, this is what we're gonna do moving forward, this is how we're gonna make money. This angle is gonna,
No,
blow the
no,
roof off. No?
the you don't tell them which way you're going in a meeting. You tell them individually what you see for them. Because if you tell them in a meeting which way they're going, it's going to get deciphered wrong. Then they're going to play he said, she said, and it's going to really be wrong. But if you tell somebody face to face, you know what you said, they know what you said, and you say, are we clear on this? Yeah. But when you say it to a meeting, it can get really twisted.
So when you are booking, obviously you're booking Florida, you got it rolling. Are you thinking in your head like this is a change of philosophy of what Eddie was doing and what Dusty was doing, or are you keeping it the same as far as I know we talked about this before? You love heat, you love booking the heat.
Yeah,
Obviously, you and Sing and Mark Lewin and eventually Luna and Woman. I mean, you're gonna create this devil gimmick and this crazy heel. Are you a different philosophy from Eddie as far as that? As far
no,
as like, oh, I'm going to turn this upside down with a crazy stable of heels.
that's Eddie's philosophy, heat. And baby faces have to overcome. I mean, look at when Bruno and Pedro were champions, giant heels, monsters. You know, Bruno usually had 3 matches with the top heel, right? He had to overcome. And that's what it was when Eddie was building Dusty. He had monsters from Bach Song on with giant heels.
Did you tell like Bob Roop and Lewin like, listen, let's keep this kayfabe. We're going to keep this devil thing because like it shows in Tales from the Territories, you're walking around the supermarkets in your gimmick. I mean, do you tell the guys or they just keep kayfabe on their own?
Do I tell them?
Yeah, like, hey guys, let's really knock this home. Let's not let
Oh,
anybody in on the secret
they,
here. Let's.
Mark and I were together most of the at the gym and every place else. And Bob carried the gimmick all the way. It's kind of hard not to when you had half your head shaved, you know?
Yep.
So, well, I didn't have to tell them anything. They just knew that if people saw you outside and were acting normal, that were wrestling fans, that were going to, especially with that gimmick being so outlandish, they were going to say, oh, this is bullshit.
Did you really walk around the supermarket like that? I mean, that's a
Yeah.
great visual
Yeah.
on the show.
Yeah. We used to ride to the towns with our robes on, me and Mark.
Were you guys legit crazy or what?
Oh, well, I think at that time, Mark had driven me crazy. I mean, we were going to the gym, we were swimming every day early in the morning. I'd go to the office. I mean, then you jump in the car and race to the town. It was a 24-hour day job.
That's got to be like crazy for a fan. It's like, oh my god, this guy's a devil worshiper, whatever. Like, oh my god, like look at him, he really is. He's food shopping and he's got his gimmick, his outfit on. Like, he really's nuts.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you had to do it back then because people believed, or at least wanted to believe.
So when you're booking the territory, how close are you to the other territories, or are they completely competition, or are you guys having an open exchange of talent, or is that only with certain guys, like certain promoters?
Well, the closer you were to another territory, there was you were closer to the booker and owner. Like Florida dealt a lot with Georgia, a lot with Carolinas, and then a lot with the Fullers. Further you go, the less you have in common is like when I left Florida and went to San Francisco, that was a long trip. So you didn't have guys like a lot of guys back in the day would start in, we'll say hypothetically.
You're saying you went out to San Francisco?
Yeah, that was that was one of the best jobs I ever had for money and travel. But that's a long way away. So we didn't talk to Roy Shires much. You know what I mean? We didn't talk to LaBelle much, but we did talk to Senior and those guys on the East Coast.
What did you think about like competition? Did you think you guys had any in the other territories, or is it's
No,
not really competition because you're in different regions and you're this is your part of the world?
it's like when baseball, the National League and American League were really separated. There wasn't that many trades between leagues, right? And that's what it was. They were over there. You didn't even know what was going on. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I mean, there was champions. Two, Boston had its own champion, and New York had its own champion. Yet they're only 225 miles apart. Nobody knew the difference. And when you got a paper, it was all local news, except big world events. I mean, if you didn't live through that time period, it's hard to think that you weren't getting news on your phone from Saudi Arabia, or what's happening in South Korea, the flood, or anything like that.
So how did you think you did as far as booking that territory? Because obviously you had it ramped up with yourself doing the Devil Slip. You had the feud with Dusty. You had all those great moments. How did you think you did as far as like booking that territory in Florida?
I think I did okay, but I had some of the greatest baby faces of all times to work with. Dusty, Blackjack Mulligan, Barry Windham, Billy Graham, Junkyard Dog, Bad News Allen. I mean, I had the crumb de crumb of the baby faces.
What do you think are some do's and don'ts that you got to look out for as far as booking?
Don't start an angle, a personal angle, and stretch it out too long before the guys touch. You know, everybody wants to keep on adding layers of the onion. Yeah, you can do that when you're starting an angle that there's not a personal issue. But once it becomes a personal issue, you gotta almost get to it. My example is, remember when Taz and Sabu, they built that angle and built that angle? They almost went too far where they didn't touch.
Right.
It got to a point where it started to go the other way. And that's a very difficult thing. And that's a learning process. And that's no knock. That's just a learning process.
So you got to make sure, obviously, you're getting enough miles out of the guys are touching as far as wrestling and fighting and feuding within a certain point, having that match in a certain point. What about like guys that like dream matches and stuff? Do you do that? Do you just do that at big shows, like your quote unquote money matches? Is that something you draw out and stuff like? Because obviously this is not a territory, but WCW Hogan Sting you drew out for a year and did 700,000+ buys.
That's a that's a whole different concept too. When you have to go back to towns every week, you don't have the luxury of a town being down for 4 months. I mean, every town that I mentioned before, but in Florida, ran every week, except the Saturday show, which was ran once a month in 4 different towns that drew big money because you loaded the cards up. You can't let a territory go down for, like I said, 4 months. You got to supply that town with what's hot. They're not going to sit, wait, and come to the 5th month.
Is it tough to keep it fresh?
Yeah, very tough.
So like you said, you're going back and back and back. Like it's got to be hard to keep it fresh and keep them coming back each and every week. It's not like you're coming back in 6 months. You're coming back weekly.
And you don't have 40 guys on your roster. You have 12 to 14. That's a little difficult too.
When you're looking at you booking a territory versus booking WCW, is it completely different because you're not running weekly towns and stuff,
Completely,
or is it
completely. It's apples and oranges. It's not even close.
is the philosophy the same though, as far as what you want to do with the guys and how you want to book heat and things like that?
Yeah, the philosophy is heat and babyface and scumbag, but you're only going to, we'll say, Denver 3 times a year. So you can, and the major towns, you weren't going there as often. It isn't like going back every week. Every week. Think about that. 52 weeks of the year they were there.
Pretty nuts, and to be able to get them to come back each time, because you figure, oh, they're going to get worn out or they're going to get tired of it. But if you're booking the territory correctly, they're dying to come back each and every week.
Right, right, right.
Do you think booking a territory, you prefer that over not like necessarily the politics of WCW, but like the more corporate side? Would you rather the territory booking or the rather the corporate side? Because obviously there's more money in the corporate side, I would think.
Much more money in the corporate side. You know what I mean? Because they're also buying the TV product. When you had territories, very few TV companies actually paid for the wrestling program.
Did you have more fun booking a territory or booking, let's say, WCW, for instance?
Well, it's like the difference between booking football, coaching football, and coaching baseball are two different entities. One you had to be on top of, but because it ran every week, you could make adjustments or you could see what was working right away.
If you had your preference, no money involved, but would you rather go back and let's say book Florida, or do you like WCW?
You can never go back. Everything's going to evolve. We'll never see territories again, and that's like daytime baseball, taking down the lights. It'll never happen.
Let's get to the topic at hand. Let's talk about WCW Halloween Havoc 1999. Was held on October 24th. It was held in Paradise, Nevada, aka Las Vegas, Nevada, at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. The attendance 8,464. The pay-per-view buys not bad, 230K. Tagline: "When our inner animals come out to play." Where are you at this point in October of 99?
I was home.
Why? Do you remember why?
Uh, yeah, the Russo came in and I might have been there. I don't think I was, but I might have been there to help out give a finish. But no, when Russo took over, the guys that were originally there were sent home.
So you were probably hunting and fishing?
Not hunting, but I was fishing probably.
Yeah. So this event is billed as the Hogan Sting rematch. So I don't know if you remember last time we were talking about Fall Brawl 99, and it was Hogan and Sting turns heel and he beats the yellow and red Hogan. Bischoff gets fired, so he's not a part of the pay-per-view. So it's kind of in flux there. I mean, you were booking Nash is there, Mold is there and stuff, but there's really no big honcho because Bischoff left. That pay-per-view only did 130,000 buys. This does 230,000 buys. So I think there was some interest because Hogan Sting rematch. I'm guessing. Like, is that kind of what you're thinking too?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that was the main event.
We'll get into while it doesn't end up being the main event because of some, I guess we'll say some crazy booking or some weirdness, which they kind of do again at Bash the Beach 2000. But we'll get into that in a second. Hogan Sting, this pay per view, what you think is the main event, 230,000 buys. The WWF pay per view, on the other hand, was No Mercy, Steve Austin versus Triple H, 330,000 buys. So, not that here in '99, not that, I mean, 100,000 is a lot, but it's not like a killer like it was the month before. Interesting.
Yeah, but they had Austin
Yeah,
and
very true.
Triple H, but Austin, he was at his zenith.
So when Russo and Ferrara come in and they're a part of the WCW creative team now, obviously they're part of the WWF team that was helping to beat WCW. So it's almost like, hey, can you guys work your magic again? WWF beat WCW after WCW kicked their ass for over 2 years. Like, can you guys do the exact opposite and help WCW beat the WWF? Did you think, okay, I don't know about that because they got Vince McMahon on the other side. Like, I don't know if these writers are necessarily the key components to why they're winning. You know, obviously you have Vince, you have Steve Austin, you have The Rock, but they're kind of intimating, oh,
Okay,
it must be the writer.
and the conversation, what you just said.
Hmm.
What did you just say? Vince McMahon, The Rock, and Steve Austin.
Right. But they do take a lot of credit, maybe wrongly or maybe rightly. The writers, Russo and Ferraro, were saying, "Oh, well, we created the Attitude Era. We wrote Crash TV." You know,
Success has many children.
hmm.
Failure is a lonely place.
Do you think that maybe not that they sold Bill Bush or ever a bill of goods, but do you think that all right? I don't know about you guys being the end all be all as far as
Was it ever repeated?
no. To me, it's a perfect storm. I mean, obviously Russo's style, he wanted to do that Attitude Era stuff, but you had the guys to make it work, the Vinces and the Austins and the Rock. So kind of goes hand in hand. But obviously, if he was in WWF when he came to WCW, I don't think he had the same magic.
And he also didn't have the same guys. At this time, too, Vince McMahon was the hottest heel in the business.
Big time. And if you look at it with Austin over there and The Rock, it's like, okay, there's who, you have Hogan and you have those guys, but who's comparable as far as young guys? Goldberg, maybe? I mean, Hogan and Savage are old at this point. They had their run as Austin and The Rock necessarily.
I don't think it's by any chance fluke that Austin was over like he was. He changed the landscape, and then you have The Rock, the biggest entertainer in the world today.
It is funny that you just look at that and you're like, okay, let's see what Russo and Ferraro can do here. They come in, they're doing the powers that be angle. I don't know if you remember that. They're
Yeah,
Russo's off, he's off camera, but you hear his voice and he's kind of instructing the Harris boys. He's technically Vince. The Harris boys are Jerry and Pat making fun of Briscoe and Patterson. Shane is making fun of Shane McMahon. That was really Virgil or Vincent. Russo or Ferrara becomes Oklahoma. Did you like that powers that be stuff?
I thought Oklahoma was the biggest disgrace in the history of the business. You're making fun of a disabled guy.
Not, I don't know, not the their best work there. Did you think at that point that like, okay, this is like taking it too far, or like, did you say any? Oh, you weren't even really there to say anything, but did anybody say anything to that? Like, that's like kind of taking it too far. It's a little extreme.
I'm not sure, but I thought it was deplorable. Jim Ross gave his life to the business. You ain't gonna make fun of him?
Now, the interesting part about that is Vince McMahon used to love that Ferrara would do that impersonation, so that's kind of the where it came from. Kind of came from Vince, which I don't know if people realize that. Like, but you don't really need to bring behind the scenes, I guess, to the front. I know Ed completely regrets it, but one of those things where, yeah, it's funny to Vince McMahon, but you don't really need to bring that to the forefront.
Yeah,
Oh, we were talking about Russo and
Ferrara.
yeah, I don't. They both say they regret it and stuff, but I don't know if you want to bring that to TV.
I don't think so.
And then they brought in Dr. Death too to make it even kind of worse. You know what I mean? Like to make it further into the JR Dr. Death, who supposedly at that point weren't getting along that great.
Yeah, because of the Brawl for It All, was it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I
Doc
guess
was a good guy.
And I guess Dr. Death gets released not that after, and I guess he thought JR's in charge of, he's in charge of the talent. So maybe like he was not going to get released. He should have protected his boy, but I know they had a little bit of a falling out at that point.
I'm sure they did.
So here are the powers that be have their kind of their inaugural show, if you will. This will be like their let's see what they got kind of thing. This is their first big pay-per-view. First match, Disco Inferno defeats Lash LaRue to retain the Cruiserweight Championship, 7 minutes, 30 seconds. What do you think about Disco and Lash going at it here?
I like both of them.
It's a pretty good match for the most part. Nothing crazy, but it's pretty good. What do you think of just Lash in general? Because he never got his big push. He never really was the cruiserweight champion. Technically, they were going to give it to him on a house show. It didn't really didn't work out that way. What did you think of Lash, and how come he didn't go further?
There was a ceiling there, glass ceiling, and he had all the credentials to do it, all the talents in the world to do it. It's just wrong place, wrong time.
So, as far as that, Disco as the cruiserweight champion, do you like Disco in the cruiserweight division? Or I know he was the prior year when you did Havoc. He was in the cruiserweight division. You guys kind of made a funny angle out of it. He had to lose weight. Like it kind of made it into a funny thing because he's not necessarily a cruiserweight. Do you like him in the cruiserweight division?
If it was done properly, yeah.
So the next matchup, Harlem Heat, Booker T, and Stevie Ray defeated the Filthy Animals, Billy Kidman, and Conan, also defeating the first family of Brian Knobbs and Hugh Morris with Jimmy Hart. This was a vacant WWE tag title match, and it was actually a street fight rules as well. The match goes 5 minutes, but Harlem Heat gets the win over Filthy Animals and the first family.
Harlem Heat was one of the greatest tag teams of all times. Rightfully so. They should go over.
You think that's too many guys? 6-man tag street fight? Is that a bit much?
Yeah, I think it's too many guys, but that's just my opinion.
Almost seems like a little bit of a cluster here. And it was supposed to be Conan and Ray, but Kidman fills in because Ray was injured. I don't know. To me, it kind of works. It's not a great match. It's just I don't know, a little bit too much of a cluster when you go back and watch it. It's almost like okay, you're gonna have a street fight, but with 6 guys, I don't know. It doesn't work. A tag team street fight is okay, or a one-on-one street fight obviously is great, but I don't know. It's just impossible to kind of keep up with who's fighting and all this when you have a street fight with 6 guys.
If you think it's tough watching, imagine being the cameraman.
Yeah, true. It was actually it was like kind of almost tough to keep up with everything because this could be going on here, you're focusing there, but then there's action over here, so then you got to switch over there.
Yeah.
So Harlem Heat end up getting the tag titles back. Like you said, they're one of the greatest. Obviously, there's a new booking regime here, but is it smart when you're in a new regime to kind of okay, we'll keep some of the old guard. Like we don't need to necessarily push all the guys I want in the future. Let's keep some old guard here on top.
You're going to keep guys that drew money. They drew money. And they're an established team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So then Ric Flair shown walking into the arena. He's alongside with David, his son, and then obviously they have DDP out as well. They're showing Goldberg's there. Mike Tenay is in the back with Eddie Guerrero. Just a lot of stuff going on, showing you kind of who's coming in and out of the building. Later on in the evening, DDP will wrestle Ric Flair in a strap match. But before that, Eddie Guerrero will defeat Perry Saturn in about 11 minutes. Pretty damn good match here. Eddie ends up getting the win by DQ, but I don't know. You can't go wrong. Eddie and Perry Saturn.
Yeah, it would be a very good match.
To me, though, the ending kind of kills it, like a DQ. Eddie ends up winning, but Flair actually comes out and he beats up Eddie furthering the storyline with Flair and the Filthy Animals before Flair gets buried in the desert, of course, which is just another thing. So they're continuing the Flair Eddie Guerrero Filthy Animals feud, but I don't know. To me, I think the match would have been better with a clean finish. Eddie just going over instead of having a DQ. You probably would agree, right?
Yeah, on pay-per-views, you need clean finishes.
Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think you need clean
Because
finishes?
you're paying to see it. You're paying to see it. It's like going to an Avengers movie, and at the end, the Avengers don't kick the shit out of the villains, and it ends up villains escaping with nobody getting hurt.
Sure, it's almost like you got ripped off a little bit. Like, hey, I paid for some
Yeah,
clean finishes here.
yeah.
So they go to the back, and Goldberg is beating up Sid. He hasn't busted open before the match, kind of almost setting it up for Sid to kind of be like this sympathetic baby face. And Goldberg is still a baby face here, but it's almost like setting it up for like Sid being the big baby. You like that? Like it's the big monster, because Goldberg and Sid are going to wrestle later, but you like that the big monster gets beat up in the back and he's laying bloodied before his big match against the other big monster?
You ever see the Frankenstein movie?
I don't recall. No.
Did the town people beat up the monster before the end of the movie? No. Sid was a monster.
Yeah, I would love to know like the reasoning behind it. I know to me it's just weird. It's like, okay, Goldberg versus Sid later. These two monsters going at, like Sid has to get beat up beforehand, and he's all bloody and stuff. I guess they're trying to turn him into like this sympathetic baby face, but he's so big and such a monster. It's almost like I'm not buying that. You know?
Yeah, yeah. They're going against the grain, and I understand maybe why they want to shake things up, but it's their take on what they're doing.
So then Buff Bagwell's music fills the arena. He comes out to the ring. He says he has a problem with the two new guys in charge, and saying that these new guys jump ship, jump to the south, but they kept saying two guys from the north jump ship. You like that? Is that a little too inside baseball here? We have to know that the writers came, the writing has changed.
Who's going to wrestle Buff?
So it's really Jeff Jarrett's going to kind of come down, and they're going to kind of play off something there. He doesn't have a match, but they're going to play it off with Jarrett and him kind of building towards a match.
Yeah, but his problem is with the new guys coming down from the north. What new guy's going to wrestle Buff?
Oh, true. Nobody. Yeah, neither one of those guys.
There's
Yeah.
no payoff.
So he's mentioning them. I don't know. I feel like maybe because they want to be mentioned, I guess. But then he says,
think?
yeah.
You think?
Then he says he's got a real problem with Jeff Jarrett, because obviously Jarrett attacked him on Nitro. So now he's starting to mention who he's going to feud with. So Jarrett hit him with a chair shot, and Jarrett's returned to WWF. He literally just left WWF. So good coup to get Jarrett after he obviously took a decent chunk of change from Vince and came south. If you know that Jeff story, he ended up making out pretty good on his way out. So then it's basically Jarrett's kind of saying, or Jarrett and Bagwell is kind of going to be the feud or whatever. That's where Bagwell's positioning himself. But I don't know. I just thought it was weird. He's got to mention those guys and then Jarrett. Like, not necessary.
No, clouding the issue.
So Jarrett also hit Luger with a guitar on Nitro to kind of bringing that into the fold too, and Luger kind of chases Jarrett away. But the whole thing is basically predicated on Jarrett's back. He's making an impact. He's hitting Elizabeth with the guitar. He hit Buff with the guitar. He wants to hit Luger with it. They're kind of trying to make Jarrett into almost like this lone cowboy or this lone guitarman who's just going to attack people.
John, can you hold on 1 second? Someone's at the door.
So the next match up, Brad Armstrong defeats Berlin, aka Alex Wright, who was with the Wall in about 4 minutes and 30 seconds. I don't know, nothing great here. Not a great. I mean, it was okay, but like the ending was really weird. Armstrong doesn't really hit a finish, but he ends up getting the win. It's just the Berlin gimmick being almost like the Nazi guy from Germany with the wall with him. I don't know, something just wasn't working. Even though Brad Armstrong is awesome and one of the best, something just wasn't working here with these two.
Yeah, and Alex Wright was great too. So it was just the chemistry wasn't there, obviously.
It was weird. Like Brad Armstrong was hardly on TV at that point in '99, and he comes and he beats Berlin, aka Alex Wright, who's under a new gimmick. When you got a guy with a new gimmick, don't you want to kind of get that gimmick over?
Yeah, you do. If you're going to do anything with him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. You would think on paper, like, oh, it's probably pretty good, but I don't know. Just it wasn't feeling that one at all. The next one, though, the next match is actually pretty good. Rick Steiner defeats Chris Benoit for the television championship match. Goes about 13 minutes. Benoit actually just beat Rick Steiner, who held the title for quite a bit. So now Steiner in this rematch gets the victory here. This is a pretty damn good match. I know I don't know about what other people thought, but I really liked the match. I thought it was great. The chemistry always there with Benoit. Obviously, very hard hitting between Rick Steiner and Benoit, as you could imagine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, two of the greatest talents in the history of the business.
Yep.
You wouldn't expect anything less.
To me, there was a little bit of like chicanery with like Malenko and Saturn trying to get involved, and them kind of maybe turning on Benoit a little bit. But besides that, I just thought that was a good match, and I really enjoyed it. Like you can imagine, obviously Rick Steiner could be a little stiff, and obviously you know firsthand about Benoit. You know he could be pretty stiff as well.
Right. And I know about Rick too. I wrestled Rick quite a
Oh,
bit.
of course, yeah, your old varsity club member, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So then we have Lex Luger, the total package, which was interesting because they really weren't calling him Lex Luger. They were literally just calling him the total package. You like that? Oh, that to me that was kind of strange. It's like we're not going to call him Lex Luger anymore. He's just the total package.
I don't
We-
know. Isn't Reggie Jackson, Mr. October?
Yeah, no.
It,
To
it
me, I'm going to call him, Reggie. I'm going to call him Lex Luger. I'm not. I mean, the total package is his nickname, but I'm not just going to call him package.
in Reggie's jersey doesn't say October, right? It says Jackson.
Yeah. I don't know why it was weird. It's like, and the announcers kept calling the total package. So I know they're really, um, really trying to get it over. But here he's wrestling Bret Hart, the total package, Lex Luger, with Miss Elizabeth, defeats Bret Hart by submission in about 8 minutes. Man, it just the finish fell a little short with kind of Bret being kind of knocked out from Elizabeth. I know there was a lot of cheating and chicanery going involved. Luger just ends up putting him in like the half crab or the leg crab, and the referee calls for the bell with the knockout. But it wasn't what we're normally used to seeing from Luger. I know it seemed a little bit slow and not really what we're used to seeing with Bret Hart. Maybe unmotivated at this point, but weird. Not well, wasn't good. You would think Luger and Bret, oh, this is going to be great. Not that great.
Do you see a pattern?
Not good booking, you mean?
Who's getting over on this? Everything you said so far has been centralized about the guys in the back. The spotlight's on them.
Hmm. A lot of it, yeah. Yep. So Brett kind of teasing he's got some sort of injury here, and he kind of he gives up from the submission. But I was just surprised, thinking like, wow, Brett's probably going to be Luger here. He's going to be on his way to a big push, but Brett loses to Luger here. So I don't know, just interesting booking. Not particularly feeling it so far with this new regime as we're going through the show. Goldberg is in the back with Mike Tenay, and he says Sid is a dead man, and he attacked him before he was trying to kill him. So I don't know. I guess really trying to get Goldberg here. Not he's still babyface, but he's doing some heel esque things, which we'll find out months later. That Brusso liked him as a heel, but I don't know. I just interesting part of. I know that was kind of his gimmick anyway. He's going to kill you. He's a monster, but I don't know. It was a weird way to kind of book Goldberg here because to me, he came off more heelish, and Sid came off, even though he's bigger and he's a monster, came off more like the sympathetic babyface.
Change of regime, right? They're doing everything different. It's the only thing I can think of.
So then Medusa ends up coming out. She's wearing a bikini. She comes out and says that this new powers that be, this new regime. She of course mentioned them, like you said before. Like seem getting a mention here. She's got the new nitro cologne. She then pours the nitro cologne on Bobby Heenan, and then she says that they're all bullshit. So I don't know if it's supposed to be some nitro cologne commercial, and and then she pours it on Bobby as some sort of I don't know what. It's very cheesy stuff, corny stuff. It didn't get over with me.
I think you described it perfectly. Pretty corny.
If you were doing the nitro cologne thing, would you pour it out? Isn't that kind of saying this is no good? Like if you're doing a commercial for it?
That's how I perceive it.
I'm guessing Bobby the Brain probably not happy that I know he probably knew about it, but I'm guessing he probably wasn't enthralled that was going to happen.
I'm sure he wasn't.
So now, next up, I don't think you're going to like this part. Next up is the main event, quote unquote, but it's not the main event. So we think it's the WWE Heavyweight Championship match between Sting and Hulk Hogan, being the rematch from Fall Brawl, where Sting turned heel and he attacked Hogan and he cheated to win, and he was with Luger and stuff. But this match isn't technically main eventing the show, and in stunning fashion, with Hogan being involved, you would think, okay, it's got to be the main event with Hogan. It's not. So Hogan comes down to the ring. His music plays. He's nowhere to be found. It plays for a few minutes, and then he doesn't come out. So then Sting comes out to hit his music. He comes out. Hogan then comes out, not wearing the red and yellow. He's just wearing like a vest and basically a vest and jeans. And he comes out and he just lays down for Sting. They ring the bell. Sting puts his foot on him. 1, 2, 3, and that's it. Sting retains the title. The fans were pissed. Can you make any sense of this? I mean, are they trying to do some inside baseball work shoot stuff here where Hogan just lays down? Like, what the hell's going on here?
I have no idea what's going on. I'm completely lost.
Very weird. So Hogan Sting is supposed to be this big rematch, and for some reason Hogan just lays down and that's it. So obviously Russo and Hogan weren't on the same page just as far as what the booking was going to be. Like I guess Russo wanted Sting to beat Hogan, and Hogan maybe wanted something different, or so Hogan just said, "All right, I'm going to come out. I'm going to lay down in 3 seconds and lose," and then Hogan would be gone for a few months until you kind of come back, and then Hogan comes back to TV. But this was, I don't know, weird. Happened twice in the cup. Remember we talked about Bash at the Beach with Hogan and Jarrett, but it happens again here with Hogan and Sting. This is obviously before that, but I don't know, very, very weird here. Would you ever book something like that? Like as far as just I know there was the finger poke of doom, and that's obviously, Hogan involved with that again. But would you think of this? Like Hogan's just going to lay down for Sting in 3 seconds and forget about the main event? We're going to just move on?
I certainly hope not that I would think of anything that bad.
Very weird. The crowd was not happy with this one, and obviously just a 3 second thing, very very confusing. I don't know if it's supposed to be some sort of work shoot thing or we're supposed to be some elaborate inside baseball thing, but Hogan literally gets pinned and walks out and leaves, and Sting is still champ. So then they go to the next match. Goldberg defeats Sid Vicious by TKO, technical knockout. Match goes about 7 minutes. Sid is bleeding throughout. The whole thing is Sid doesn't give up, doesn't quit. He literally gets knocked out, so Goldberg is declared the winner. Kind of a good, this little slugfest between these two. Do you like that though? He just beats the hell out of him, and he's left bloody, and that's how Goldberg gets the win. Doesn't pin him or submit him.
So Sid got over by doing that, you think?
I don't know. I think that's what they were going for. I don't know if it necessarily worked.
I asked you, who watched it,
Yep.
to get over.
Nah, I don't think so. I know Goldberg's huge. He's a monster, but still, it's a smaller guy beating him to death. It almost should be reversed. You know what I mean? Like, shouldn't Sid be the one bleeding and bloodying him and leaving him a pile?
I would think so, but they saw it a different way.
And obviously Goldberg ends up winning the United States Championship here, which is kind of interesting too, because almost like he took a back step to the U.S. title. He really, kind of should be going for the world title, but just, I don't know, interesting to me the way they did, because it just fell flat. To me, it fell flat.
Well, the way you're explaining it sounds flat to me too.
I don't know. I would have booked it differently for sure. And I don't know. I guess you're trying to make Sid this like Steve Austin esque babyface where he's, laying in his own blood. But I didn't particularly care for it as much.
I have to agree with you.
So then we have a strap match. DDP with Kimberly defeats Ric Flair in a strap match in about 12 minutes and 50 seconds. I don't know. It's just, to me, again, just not a great match, not a great finish here. Um, I don't know. Just you would think Flair and DDP the match would be awesome, and be honest, it just wasn't. Again, a flat finish, maybe because they didn't have maybe experienced guys writing out the finishes. Maybe that's why every finish is kind of coming up flat.
I have no idea on that. You know what I mean? I wasn't there. So maybe, could be an idea.
And then, of course, the Filthy Animals come out. They beat up Flair. They put Flair in an ambulance and they drive away, which, of course, we'll find out the next night on Nitro. They're going to bury him in the desert, which is a different story for a different day. But man, he
Yeah.
not only does he lose to DDP in a flat ending and a flat match, he then gets beat up by the Filthy Animals and then taken away. So Hogan's gone, Flair's gone, and both don't look good and both look flat. The Sid ending is flat. Goldberg kind of, even though he looked dominant, kind of looks like a heel, and he's a U.S. champ. Like, weird. Before we get to the main event, I don't know. To me, weird show so far.
Right.
You getting that vibe?
Oh, completely.
So then Sting comes back out and says that there wasn't a championship match. He wants to defend the title. Goldberg then comes out again, and Goldberg ends up defeated Sting for the WCW Championship in about 3 minutes. I mean, 3 minute match. It was entertaining as hell, just because Goldberg and Sting are awesome, but very, very short. So if it's as good as a 3 minute match as you're going to get, which is you're not really going to get too excited over it. But Sting had beaten up the ref. Goldberg thinks he's the champ, but it's technically a non-title match. It was very, very weird the way it was described. Sting wanted to defend the title, but they didn't announce it was a title match. Weird stuff, but they end the pay-per-view with it looking like there was a lot of drama around the world title, and we don't know who the world champion is. That's the way the show ends. Kind of, I don't know, poor booking to me to end the show.
Would you buy another pay-per-view after this?
I did, but I was very, very skeptical of it because I'm like, wait a second. They said Goldberg's the champ, but then they kind of said he isn't the champ. Sting, it couldn't be the champ, but then he attacked the referee. So is there some sort of suspension going on with Sting? Like, it was very, very confusing. But Goldberg ended the night looking like he was the U.S. champ and the world champ, but the announcers kind of wouldn't crown him as it. Very strange.
So it's false booking.
Yes. Yep. Sting, of course, disputes the decision, beats up the ref, and the show ends. So definitely a tease. But it's one of the things where you have to watch Nitro the next night. But do you want to watch Nitro the next night to follow up on what the hell just happened?
I'm not sure.
Are you confused by all of this?
Completely.
So what they announced the next night on Nitro, a 32-man tournament for the vacant WCW Championship. Bret Hart ends up winning that title at Mayhem in a great match against Benoit to win the title a month later at the Mayhem pay-per-view. But man, getting there was crazy. The tournament itself and the people involved, it's crazy.
I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think 32 guys in boxing, do they have the top 32 guys listed?
No. Top 10, I think UFC is top 15 now, but that's the top you're going to go. Yeah, top 10.
32 guys are qualified to wrestle for the title.
And if you saw some of these people in the tournament, hell no. No way.
Okay.
So 2 thumbs down on this one, I'm going to guess?
Absolutely. My whole hands are down.
To me, I liked Eddie and Saturn, and I liked Steiner and Benoit, but that's it. The rest of it was, I don't know, crazy. The booking was crazy, but that's where we'll end this one. Definitely not a good pay-per-view, not a good start for Russo, and for the powers that be era, not a good start. So let's hit the plugs. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. Check out the website, tmptempire.com. You can follow Kevin on Instagram at Taskmaster Talks. Go to Pro Wrestling Tees, prowrestlingtees.com, and visit the Kevin Sullivan store. Kevin, what else you got going on in your world?
Well, I'm going to be in Homestead Saturday and for CCW, but I'm still on my fishing trip, so I'm having a good time. Visit my family.
Nice. I love that. Extended fishing trip for you. I love that.
Yeah.
But thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you right back here next week for a little Taskmaster Talks with Kevin Sullivan. We'll see you next week, folks.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.